What's up, guys? Welcome back to a new era of Bears football. For the first time in my life and anyone's life, the Bears have fired a head coach mid-season. I think most of us called it the 24 hours prior. I said it multiple times. I made 2 videos about it that we have to fire Eberflus. That was the biggest coaching malpractice I've ever seen. Greg, I haven't had a chance to talk to you since then, but welcome back, my good friend Greg Gabriel, everyone.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing great.
What's funny is that Aldo and I, we did a show Friday because of the game Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
So we're like 20 minutes into the show, 25 minutes into the show, we started off. Well, we thought he was going to get fired. Then all of a sudden, lo and behold, he gets fired. Right, we're 20 minutes into the show. Yeah. So we had to change the whole scope of the program.
I mean, and before that, the craziest thing, I mean, it's been talked about a lot now, but the fact that he actually went out there, had a press conference, and said, I'm confident I'm going to be on the sideline against the 49ers this weekend.
He's got to say that. I mean, and you know what? In all honesty, a lot of people in the media and even fans are trying to make a big deal out of it. I don't really think it was a big thing. It's hey, they're upstairs trying to make a decision, and it's not just the decision of firing the coach. It's also involved with who you're going to elevate to be the interim coach. You've got to contact his agent, get the agent on board. You got to give him more money, and all the other changes you're going to make with the coaching staff. So it's not something you can do in 5 minutes.
Yeah, 100%.
And so could they have delayed it? Yes. But if they delayed it, they're just telling him he's going to get fired. So I get it. Could it have been better? Yeah. But it's their problem it's somebody's problem, PR's problem or whatever, for scheduling a 9 a.m. presser. Yeah. On a Friday morning, when usually those are about noon, on the Monday, when the normal Monday ones, those usually come somewhere between 11 and 12. And at that time, he was gone. If you use the regular Monday schedule.
Now, I would like to see, I said I would like to see our front office a little bit more together. The response was they hadn't decided at that point to fire Eberflus, but I think, to me, everyone knew.
Well, I think they had decided it was some of that other stuff that I mentioned. There's
Go ahead and put that presser on hold. They just got to have it together more. Did you watch Thursday Night Football last night?
Not all of it.
Okay, so they talked a lot about Ben Johnson and specifically what he's looking for in a next head coaching opportunity, and it actually sounded kind of like he was sending a message to the Bears. He said, look, he's not chasing interviews this year. He's only going to accept interviews if they meet what he's looking for in a head coaching opportunity. I have it down here, what he's looking for.
But I know what you mean. He's trying to dictate, and in a way that's smart, because a lot of people will tell you, hey, I'm only going to get one shot at this. So I want it to be the right one. And you can't blame that. I remember Ballard told me that when he went to Indianapolis, and there was other times that he had offers. He said, I want to make sure the situation is right for me. Now, and there's been criticism of Jimmy Irsay, but you know what Jimmy Irsay is? He's patient as hell. And so, and Chris wanted that. So, and it shows that with the history of who he's had as coaches and general managers, et cetera. So, I think Ben's the same way. I go back and he is obviously an excellent candidate, but I keep going back to this, and only because I've seen it happen so many times. Just because he's the hot candidate, just because he's the supposed excellent candidate, does not mean he's the best candidate. And,
I agree with that.
We can see You can use Detroit. Perfect example. They got laughed at when they hired Campbell. Who the hell is he? He wasn't even a coordinator, yada, yada, yada. And he was one of the last guys hired. Yet who turned out to be the best coach in that cycle? Dan Campbell. Robert Saleh, when he gets hired by the Jets, he was supposed to be the can't miss guy. Kind of like Nico Ryans, who followed him. And who failed?
Well, see, what the biggest thing with those and what goes hand in hand, look at the two guys who are having success, Dan Campbell and D'Amico Ryans. What did they have that Robert Saleh didn't have? Offensive coordinators and play callers that are highly thought of throughout the NFL. D'Amico Ryans has Bobby Slowick, and Dan Campbell has Ben Johnson. My biggest question about Dan Campbell, how will that offense be, and how will he respond when Ben Johnson finally leaves? Because to me,
well, you know what's funny, and it's a good thing you brought it up, is he didn't bring in Ben Johnson. He was there.
Yeah,
he kept him on.
Mm-hmm. But that's being smart,
and elevated his role. So it's not a guy he went out and searched for.
But it's a guy who has had a ton of success in the NFL, and once he's gone, how are you going to replace him, and can you continue having the same success you have?
No, and that's a legitimate question, and nobody has the answer to it.
Yeah.
He's got two coordinators on that staff that are excellent head coaching candidates. You got him, and you got Glenn.
Aaron Glenn.
And there's some people think Glenn might be the better one, because Johnson has got a quarterback, and he's got some skill people, to help that offense run, where, you look at Glenn, and I mentioned this yesterday when I was doing my show with Aldo, is that they got 13 freaking guys on IR on the defensive side of the ball for Detroit, yet they're still playing great football. And that's a testament to Glenn.
It is. Well, I mean, so two of the other big names that are going around right now are Mike Vrabel and Bill Belichick. To me, I think you're going to be on the same page as me on this one, because I think I saw something on Twitter, but I don't want either of those guys. I think they're both past their prime. Vrabel is a guy who I like actually maybe more than Belichick. Belichick hasn't done anything in the NFL without Tom Brady. And in fact, my biggest knock on him is I question what he can do to develop a young quarterback. If you look at, they drafted Mac Jones in the first round, and then he brought in a defensive coordinator to run that offense and develop Mac Jones.
I hear you.
So
I worked with Bill for 7 years. So and I know him. Can't say I've talked to him recently, because I haven't. I haven't talked to him in years. But, I know how he is. We worked in New York. He was Parcells' defensive coordinator when I was there, and obviously very successful. When he went to Cleveland, I didn't think he was quite ready for that job. And what he tried to do is emulate Bill Parcells. And you can't emulate Bill Parcells. There's only one. And it didn't work out. He goes back to work for Bill Parcells as a coordinator again, then takes a New England job. But in that time frame, with it was about 5 years, 6 years, he kind of reinvented himself and exactly how he wanted to do things as Bill Belichick, not trying to imitate Bill Parcells.
Yeah, 100%.
And he did a great job doing that. Build a good program. I look at it this way. I don't look at it like he can't do anything without Tom Brady. I look at it as a partnership, because he was heavily involved, be it if Charlie Weiss was there, and Charlie worked in New York with us too, or if he had Josh McDaniels as a coordinator. Belichick was still heavily involved with what was going on with the offense, and would meet with Brady and had a lot to do with what the game plan was through his conversations with Brady on a weekly basis. So But that all being said, because I think the world of Bill, and he's going to go down as the greatest coach in NFL history. Hell, he's won 6 Super Bowls as a head coach. He'll be 73 years old, I think, in April. He's a year younger than me, almost to the day. And how long is a guy 73 going to be your head coach? You're looking at a short-term fix here, if you want to call it a fix, not a long-term situation. At that age, anything can happen.
That's the opposite of what I want, especially since we finally have our franchise quarterback. We have the guy that can lead this franchise to where we wanted to go. A franchise quarterback, young. Caleb Williams is ready. I want a young, offensive-minded head coach to pair with Caleb for the next decade. And I also think that if you want to hit a home run, that's how you swing for the fences. You try to find the next Matt LaFleur, the next Kyle Shanahan. Because if you look around at who's winning Super Bowls right now, it's not defensive head coaches. Those guys aren't going to the Super Bowl. It's Kyle Shanahan. It's Sean McVay. It's Zach Taylor. It's Andy Reid. It's offensive-minded guys who also call plays. And I think that's just the way the NFL is evolving. I wouldn't hate a defensive guy, but to me, I think it's a clear favorite right now. I'd rather have an offensive guy that's going to work with Caleb Williams. That's what I'm hoping for. I think it's a special time for this franchise. We finally have our quarterback. Let's get someone who understands offense and can help Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze develop into superstars into the NFL. Because we just spent 2 first-round picks on a quarterback and a receiver.
True.
Let's get those. And last year was an offensive tackle. So it's clear offense is a focus with this team. And you can find a good defensive coordinator. Probably easier than you can find a good offensive coordinator. So to me, I want an offensive guy, but I still like Marcus Freeman. There's other names I like. But to me, I wouldn't. You don't like him?
No, I'm not going to say I'm not going to like him. I don't think, number one, he's ready for the pro game. He's never spent a minute in pro. His only time with the pros was when we drafted him.
Yep.
Okay, he was in another camp the next year, but we cut him, and I think he was a 5th or 6th round pick, had unbelievable traits, but terribly disappointed. When we're in our meeting to do the cut down to 53, we didn't even want him back on the practice roster. We just, he was disappointed. Now, that doesn't take away anything. You know, he met his calling as a coach. He's done a great job at Notre Dame. He is about the same age as Thomas Brown, give or take a year. He might be a year younger. That's my guy. But I think college is his game.
I could see that.
You know, he's a very good recruiter. He's got the mentality. You can look at guys like Saban. Saban got out because of the NIL, and it's all about money. Now with the college kids and the transfer portal, and he said, I don't need this shit. That's why Chip Kelly left UCLA and took a coordinator's job at Ohio State, is because he didn't want to deal with that stuff anymore. It's just crazy. So go ahead. No.
You already mentioned the guy who I think might be my favorite candidate. Then he's already in house.
Thomas Brown.
I'm really high on
absolutely.
Thomas Brown, man.
I said it yesterday with Aldo. I said, hey, this guy, to use a golf phrase, he's the clubhouse leader right now. And all he's got to do, and I don't think he has to meet a certain record. It's how he runs the football team. Because when you look at it, they are shorthanded with injuries. I mean, hell, we might know before we're done doing this show who's going to be out on Sunday in San Francisco. You know, and if you look on, you could have DJ could be out, Swift could be out, Roshan could be out. I mean, three big names.
I think Roshan's definitely out. I do believe DJ and Swift are going to play. I think.
Yeah, I do too. But it's just they haven't practiced yet this week. Now maybe they're practicing today, or at least on a limited basis.
Yep.
I liked what Thomas said. He said on Wednesday they all got a chance of playing on Sunday. which was to me a very positive thing. And he knows what's going on with their health, what the trainers are saying. He meets with those guys every day. But I've talked to some people that he's worked with at the Rams. They're all up here. Pat Manley was on with us a couple weeks ago. Pat's got some connections with McVay. He said the same thing. McVay actually leaned on Thomas as his assistant head coach because of the relationship that Thomas had with the players and how he could deal with players in a certain way. So I really like him. I like the way he's handled the press conferences so far. He feels he seems a little bit uptight at sometimes, but that happens. I mean, all of a sudden you're thrown in front of the press on a 3 or 4 times a week basis. It's not the easiest thing to do. You got to get used to it. But the important thing is how the team deals with them and how the team reacts to them. And just from the comments that we hear, it sounds real good. And so I'm really anxious to see what happens on Sunday.
Me too. Yep. I mean, he has the players' respect. I think that's the biggest thing. I did want to address Q's comment here. He says, can we let him coach a game first? His offense already had hiccups last week. Let's see how he manages the role. Let's not forget he was a position coach only a few weeks ago. Let's add on top of that.
I'm going to say this.
Assistant head coach
for
3 years. So, I mean.
He was assistant head coach. He was a coordinator in the league. He was a coordinator for 3 years in college. And I did one thing because some people said he was like Tomlin-esque, and there's only one Tomlin. But you go back and you look at Tomlin's resume up until the day he took the Pittsburgh Steelers job. It is almost identical to Thomas Brown's. Even their age is like 2 years apart, 2 years difference. But their experience in the league and what they've done in the league and everything else is they were young guys, dynamic young guys who were very good leaders. And the players respected who could connect with the players.
Yeah, I think it's clear that's what we have in Thomas Brown. I think everything we've seen from him, he's a guy who he commands attention when he speaks. Players respect him. He's going to hold people accountable. And what I like to add is I don't really think anyone's getting ahead of themselves when it comes to Thomas Brown. I think we're just excited to see what the guy can do.
Yeah, there's no question. Hey, it could all go out the window. And
he has 5 games.
Right. But again, I'm my gut feeling is it's not, they don't have to go 4-1 or 5-0 for him to get the job. It's more about the big picture, about how he handles the team, because we don't know what the injuries are going to be over the next 5 weeks. And it's, I think, how he relates to his coaches. Right away, he made changes in the coaching staff in that he elevated Beatty to the offensive coordinator, even though Thomas is really the offensive coordinator and the play caller. But Beatty has got more of a say in what goes on. And by the way, did you listen to his presser yesterday?
I did. It was pretty funny.
He was impressive too.
He called Keenan Allen the coach.
His coach. He said, "Oh, he's really the coach."
Coach Keenan. I just wanted to add that I'm just excited because I believe this was the right move to make.
Absolutely.
And that's something that's, as Bears fan, it's never happened in our history. We've never fired a head coach mid-season.
Never fired a coordinator in mid-season.
Exactly, except for the one, the off the record thing, whatever happened with our DC last year.
That
was a weird one, kind of he resigned or something.
He resigned, but I mean, I don't know if we'll ever know the real story.
But I just think this was a perfect opportunity here where we have a young guy with upside and potential that other people around the league, Andrew Whitworth, Sean McVay, there's so many others, are speaking so highly of. And then you just listen to him yourself. And that's what I don't tell these people what to think. What I see, and I think what a lot of other people see too, this is a guy, you just listen to him talk, and it's like, wow, I haven't heard a head coach speak with this much authority since Lovie Smith. And Lovie wasn't even real, but Lovie wasn't like that. Lovie's a lot more soft-spoken. He had his moments. Lovie had his moments, but Lovie was a guy when he went up there, you listened to what Lovey said.
No question.
He got your attention when he spoke. He didn't speak. He didn't have the same demeanor Mike Tomlin does, but he still grabbed your attention when he went up there and got on the mic. And we haven't had that in a while. Thomas Brown is different, and I'm just really excited to see what he can do over these next 5 games. We actually took a chance on a young guy, and I do think there's a possibility that he can be the guy that sticks around long term. So I'm excited about it.
I agree with you. And it remains to be seen. You know, it's funny because I was listening to, and I don't listen to the radio much anymore. They're just too damn negative. But I was listening, and the Sun-Times, Jason, is it Leiser was on, I think, the Score. And, you know, he was saying the worst thing they can do is make Thomas Brown the interim head coach. That's the worst thing for Caleb. And I'm going, is he out of his freaking mind? You know, that's the best thing because what you're doing, it's not going to affect Caleb and how he reacts or interacts with Caleb in the slightest, but you are finding out exactly about him and who he is, and can he handle the rigors of being a head coach.
And we're going to get a chance to see it firsthand, and that's what I'm excited about. This is a guy who every other season we've ever had like this, when we've had a lame duck coach, whether it was Matt Nagy or Mark Trestman, even if we had someone with potential on the staff, we've never taken a chance on him. And
I never thought they had one. You know, looking at the staffs, I never thought there was nobody on Trestman's staff. And I didn't think there was really anybody on Nagy's staff, not this last year. You know,
that's the thing, though. Not only are we, but we hired a guy with potential like that, who's thought of throughout the league, and then followed it up by making the right move, firing Eberflus, I almost said Nagy, and promoting Thomas Brown over where when you would have asked me at the beginning of the season, hey Swift, if Matt Eberflus gets fired this year, who would you expect to take over? I probably would have said Eric Washington or Richard Hightower. Right. Those would be the two most logical choices. So it's a big move for the Bears, and it tells me the people up front understand it, and they're doing it the right way, and they're going to at least go about the process of finding a head coach better this offseason. And that's why I'm excited.
You know, to go back to one thing, you know, so somebody said, well, let's have him coach one game. There were some hiccups, you know, in the game last week. Yeah, there was. Don't forget. Now, some people said, well, they're not using his offense. Well, he's a McVay protege, and this is McVay's offense, at least from the base point of view. Every coach puts their own little highlights to it, the way they utilize the scheme. He's already done that from week 1. He's made subtle changes, and with Beatty, they've made some changes in the route concepts just within individual plays and stuff. So he is, in essence, still, it's his offense because it's the offense he's grown up with in the National Football League. But it's not exactly as where there's differences is that how many people, let's say he gets the job, how many people on this staff will he retain?
That's hopefully not Chris Morgan. I think that's the one most of us want gone at this point.
Well, I know where you're coming from, but I you know, something tells me he's going to be around too, because there's a lot of people think highly of him.
Yeah.
You know, and that you can't necessarily blame him for the faults of the offensive line when a lot of it's been injuries.
And someone said Shane Waldron was a McVay protege also. And that's not a shot at McVay though. Waldron is a guy who I think he's done some good things in the NFL, but some people just don't have the personality to step up and do it. And that's based on everything I've heard. It was him not holding people accountable. It wasn't him not being a good coach or him not being a good offensive coordinator. It was the little things that he let go. He didn't
Well, he
hold
wasn't a good
people
play
accountable,
caller.
and he definitely struggled with Caleb Williams as a play caller this year. I don't know if it was arrogance, but he was not. There was no rhythm to his offense. Caleb would hit the back of his drop, and receivers wouldn't be halfway through their routes. It
Too
didn't
many
make any
slow
sense.
developing plays
Yep.
instead of
With a bad offensive line.
right. You know,
Just didn't make sense.
and what they've done changed this a little bit. They've done some half field read stuff versus full field, so he gets the ball out of his hand. You know, they're doing a lot of things to help Caleb be better.
And I mean, the biggest thing for me is Caleb's development. And Thomas Brown is a big part of that. I think him and Kerry Joseph are probably the two lead guys. I know Chris Beatty's the guy that got promoted, but I think Kerry Joseph is going to be working a lot closer with Caleb Williams. He's the QB coach. Chris Beatty's going to oversee the rest of the offense, most likely. And it's going to be Thomas Brown and Kerry Joseph working closely with Caleb. And based on what we've seen over the last 3 weeks, just with Thomas Brown calling plays, Caleb has already shown us more than we've ever seen from any rookie quarterback or maybe even any veteran quarterback on the Bears.
He's buying into what Thomas is doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of the battle. If he buys in and he's happy with it, then everybody's smooth going forward, and so now you just want to see the defensive side of the ball react in the same manner as the offensive side of the ball has reacted over the course of the last 3 weeks. And I think they will. I worked with Eric, so I know him. There's not a doubt in my mind he's going to call a lot more aggressive game.
That was going to be my next question. Do you think we're going to blitz more? Someone did ask, do you think he would be
he was blitzing off the bus in the preseason. Go back and watch the preseason games.
Do you think there's any chance he's upset he didn't get the head coaching job?
No. There's nothing he can do about it anyway. He's a mature guy.
That's kind of how I thought, yeah.
Yeah, and he knows it. I mean,
and I think he's going to see this as an opportunity with the defense, too. This is a talented defense, and he's going to get to call the plays now.
Well, here's the thing, and I know I'm a step ahead here, but I'm trying to think more like the front office guy I am, and instead of a fan, and that is, okay, let's assume that you keep Thomas Brown. You want some continuity. The last thing you want to do is bring in a defense. Now, assuming Eric does a good job for the next 5 weeks too, and the defense starts playing as they're capable of playing. You want some continuity. You bring in a defensive coordinator with an entirely different philosophy. That changes the type of player you're looking for. And they have spent 3 years putting these guys together. And the defense that Eric came from in Buffalo is very similar to Flus's.
Yep.
It's not what Buffalo does better than, and I think the Bears got to do it in the future, is they got some more size inside, except for Oliver. But they rotate the guys out. The other guys are big guys playing inside. And I think they need at least, Billings is a big guy. He's not tall, but he's big. And he's got, really good arm length. But they need one more of those guys to go along with Gervon or Pickens or who's ever going to be the other tackle. But I think you need, because you're going to play a 4-man rotation. And when Billings isn't in, you need another space eater who can take on people, not give ground, clog up the middle of the offense. And I just think that's important. But if you bring in a guy with a totally different philosophy, now you might have to go out and get different players. And that, to me, that's not conducive to building the program the way you want to build a program.
Yeah, I do think there are specific things we're going to be looking for, especially if we hire an offensive coach. I don't know if we have the personnel right now to switch to a 3-4 defense. It's possible.
Well, 3-4 is really nobody runs the base 3-4s are like
it's nickel, yeah. But
10,
in the
it's
nickel,
like
they would
10
run.
downs a game. Yeah,
They would run. It's different how they use their personnel, though, and we
right.
have guys
Totally different how you use your personnel. There are times when your edges are dropping back into coverage. Just where in this defense, your edges are never dropping into coverage.
Yeah. I do have to address this one. Someone said, Thomas says, Chicago sports have never been more depressing, has it? And I'm so opposite, especially when it comes to the Bears. Maybe if you're talking baseball or the Chicago Bulls who are in the absolute dumpster, but I feel like this franchise is in a better direction and has a brighter future than it has since back when we went to the Super Bowl in 2006. And I feel like things are even better now. We have a quarterback and we have cap space. We have our draft picks. We have a young roster. And I have faith in Ryan Poles that he can get it done. I'm happy with where the Bears are right now. This season has been, I talked about it all off season. This is one thing that people just forget. I talked all off season about how rookie quarterbacks struggle. And Caleb has actually played better than even I expected. And yet Matt Eberflus and our coaching lost this game. So
yeah,
to act like our
this
team
team
isn't
could
in a
very
great
easily
position,
have a reverse record than what they have. They could be 8-4 instead of 4-8.
we could be 8-4. Yeah, we could even potentially be 9-3 if we got lucky and got a couple calls. But that's where I'm excited about this team's future. We're gonna have another great draft pick coming in. It could be top 15 next year, depending on how these next 5 games go. I think I have faith in Ryan Poles and Kevin Warren to find us the right head coach. We also have the Panthers' 2nd-round pick. We have a lot of cap space. Our quarterback is not going to be a rookie next year. There's so much reason for excitement for this team.
Yeah, there's no question. It's the most important thing they got to do is fix the offensive line. And part of that probably will be in free agency with a vet and the draft choice. But I think they need another big guy in the interior, which I just mentioned a little while ago. But after that, the roster is pretty good. You're going to have to get, do they bring back Keenan Allen? You bring him back if you get the he says he's got his price. It's what the price is, obviously, and
I think it might have came down. Did you hear his comments the other day when he was talking about what DJ said to him?
Well, he said it's either here or they're talking about when he said he's either going to be here in San Diego.
Someone interviewed him more recently than that, and they said, and Keenan said, "Look, DJ has been talking to me a lot, and he told me I need to run it back in Chicago." And the reporter asked him, "Do you want to run it back one more year in Chicago?" And he said, "Oh yes, definitely." So, and he also said he went on a little bit there, and also said, like, he commented that he knows he hasn't had the year he's expected to, not just him, but the offense overall. And it made it seem like he was willing to take a discounted price and come back here and prove that, hey, him and DJ Moore and do what they expected to do this season with Caleb next year. So I am hopeful that Keenan comes back for one more year. I don't want to give him $25 million or anything crazy, but hopefully
he's 17 now or something like that.
Yeah, if you can go 15 to 20 million right in there for a year, yes, bring Keenan back. I don't even know if
you want to give him that, to be honest, only because of his age.
You could do incentives,
and he has missed a lot of time. But in saying that, his best football has been the last 3 weeks when Thomas took over as the OC and Beatty's got more involved with the offense, and Beatty is the guy who coached him with the Chargers the last few years.
Yep.
It's like he was an afterthought with Waldron, and now with these guys, he's more of a focus.
Yep. J2K did ask a question. I believe the answer is no, but he says, do we get comp picks if we hire Thomas Brown? I believe that's only if another team hires him away. You can't hire
the
your
other
own
team
guy.
The other team gets the comp picks.
Oh, is it that? I thought both teams got it when you
No.
from...
No, we didn't get any comp picks when we hired Ryan Poles.
Yeah, that's
Kansas
what I'm
City.
saying. It's not the team that hires him, it's the team he
Yeah.
comes from. The Chiefs would get it.
Right,
So if someone
right.
hired Thomas Brown away from us, we'd get a pick. But us
Yes.
hiring him ourselves, we don't get a pick for promoting our own guy, I don't believe
No,
yet. No.
no, not at all. But we gotta, I mean, look, we both are coming from the same direction as what we'd like to see happen. You know, I'm cautiously optimistic, but I'm also realistic. He's got to prove that he's the guy.
Yep.
And we'll start to see that on Sunday. But there are other names, and Johnson obviously is somebody that you're going to want to talk to. Glenn is going to be somebody that you want to talk to. I think you need to talk to Vrabel. I wouldn't even pick up the phone to call Belichick for what I've
Do you
already
have a favorite
said.
or a guy that you like most at this point?
No, because and I'll be honest, I haven't sat down and talked to these guys. How do I know? And
that's
so
why it's so tough to speculate for me. I would want to ask what your thoughts are on maybe one guy, Cliff Kingsbury, considering he's worked with Caleb in college, the success he's having with Jaden Daniels, and he was a head coach before, and he had success developing Kyler Murray, who has a lot of similar traits that Caleb Williams does. Do you have thoughts on Cliff Kingsbury?
I'm not a Kingsbury fan.
I don't think I am either.
There's a misconception out there. He did not coach Caleb Williams. He was an analyst.
Yeah, he was on the coaching staff.
He was on the coaching staff as an analyst. Now they changed the rules this year. This year, under the rules, an analyst can be on the field coaching.
Yeah.
Last year, an analyst could not coach. There's, somebody tried to say, well, look, here's a picture of him on the sideline during the game. I said, yeah, and he doesn't even have a headset on.
Yep.
He's, he was an analyst. The only work he could do with Caleb is in the classroom.
Yeah.
There's no on the field was allowed at all. So, and you got to turn your tape, practices are taped.
But they have a relationship there, and
they had no question. They have a relationship, and I'm sure he's worked with them in the classroom and done it from that point. But actual on the field coaching, he hasn't done it.
Yep.
But my problem with Kingsbury is between college and the pros, he's got like one winning season. He won 1 year in Arizona. That was it. He had Patrick Mahomes at Texas Tech and couldn't freaking win.
They didn't win, but they put up numbers. He helped develop Patrick Mahomes. He helped develop Kyler Murray, and he at least has a relationship with Caleb Williams. So he does have that quarterback. If we're going to hire someone, this is what I'll say about Kingsbury. If you're going to go with the guy who's a former NFL head coach, which is a lot of what people are talking about when it comes to Vrabel and Belichick, out of that bucket, I'll take Cliff Kingsbury because I want an offensive guy. I want a young guy, but I'm still, Todd Monken's a name that's getting thrown around. I do like Todd Monken. That's a tough one though. There's a lot of names out there. Let's get off.
I'm not sure. I know he came from Georgia. Is this his first pro job?
I'd have to
look at his background to see. He might have been purely a college guy.
I thought he went.
The names I got down, but there'll be more. Obviously, Johnson.
He was the Bucs offensive coordinator.
Oh, okay. Dave Tobe. I'd talk to Dave Tobe in a minute and a half because I know what Dave Tobe is, and I know how players react to Dave Tobe. And then Bobby Slowick, because of the job he's done in Houston. I talked to Kingsbury. I talked to Vrabel. Talked to Thomas Brown. That's there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 names.
I was gonna switch off the head coach talk and talk about the 49ers, but this kind of segues into it because I don't know where all this is coming from, but there's a lot of talk about the Kyle Shanahan trade. I don't think they're getting rid of Kyle Shanahan. I don't want to give up first-round picks for a coach. But if they fired him, I'd hire him instantly. I just
They're in the Super Bowl a year ago. He isn't going anywhere.
Not happening. Yeah.
No, I mean, they're having a down year. Note that this is fan wishful thinking, and then idiots
and
like
clickbait media.
Floria. Yeah, people like Floria. Floria said I made it up, and he also made up that he said, well, McVay took exception to it. McVay didn't do a thing. Number one, if McVay picked up the phone and called Florio, he's violating his own contract. By saying, why didn't you mention me? So I mean, Florio is so full of shit. Like, here's a big thing today about the George McCaskey, the Twitter account that
the fake there. George McCaskey.
If you didn't know that was fake,
7,000 to 8,000 people have already followed him and believe it's the real George McCaskey.
I looked at one post and they said this ain't George.
I tweeted out. I tweeted out PSA. This is not George McCaskey, and it got some likes, but most of the comments are like, "How do you know? How would you assume that?" I'm like,
I said, in our chat that we're in.
Yeah,
I said it in that. I said it ain't George.
Yeah, it's not George. It's not, I said that it's no chance that's George McCaskey. People,
I don't even know if George knows how to use Twitter.
Yeah, and he definitely wouldn't be commenting
in a negative way. That's not,
He also had some racy tweets on there that got deleted that were things that George would never ever say. So it just
I know George very, very well, and the last thing he's going to do is be on social media.
Yep. Commenting about stupid stuff all day. Yeah, it's just not George. But speaking of the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan, though, do you think we have a chance to beat him this week? It's Thomas Brown's first game as head coach against aforementioned Kyle Shanahan. But they are beat up. No Christian McCaffrey, no Jordan Mason. A lot of injuries.
I'm more concerned about Bosa and their left tackle.
Trent Williams,
Yep. And Trent, you probably saw at the beginning of the week. I mean, he's got an oblique injury, I think, but I didn't know until when they released it at the beginning of the week. His wife had a stillbirth last week.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And I'm not sure if that was their first child, but regardless, I mean, it's just a heartbreaking situation. Is he mentally ready to come back and play, especially when they're not going anywhere?
Yeah, their season is kind of in the dumps right now, and that's something nobody expected the 49ers to actually be having, definitely by expectation standards, a lot worse season than we're having. They're definitely not meeting expectations this year, whereas we're struggling along with our rookie quarterback, but this offense has shown signs of life, and I think the Bears can come out and beat the San Francisco 49ers this week. I'm always hopeful, though. I always have hope.
Yeah, I know. I agree with you.
The reason for hope here. I
should have won the last 3 games.
We should have.
That's right.
We should have beat 3 playoff teams, the Vikings, the Packers, and the Lions. We had all 3 of them beat, but Eberflus flushed those opportunities away. And now if our team can just play as good as at least similar football that they've played the last 3 weeks, and our coaches cannot F up the game and throw it away, I have a lot of faith that we're gonna show a lot of promise here at the end of the season. But if not,
part of it's mental discipline on the players' part. You can't have the stupid penalties. But and the players know that. But part of it, I haven't played the game a lot myself. Sometimes stupid penalties happen when you don't give a shit. And my gut feeling is a lot of those players haven't given a shit in the last few weeks.
Yeah, it's very possible. I think it's going to be a good game. I think the Bears these players care. I mean, the talks of Jalen Johnson blowing up in the locker room and everything, that everyone going off on Eberflus and this roster, they cares. And a lot of these guys have been Bears their whole career. A lot of these young guys, they haven't been anywhere else. And they know they've been here when the roster sucked. And they couldn't do anything about it. But now they see the talent. They look over and see Pro Bowlers like Keenan Allen and DJ Moore on offense and DeAndre Swift and this defense. They see all the talent when they look over the field, and they know that they should have won these games. And then they experienced these losses, the Hail Mary, the blocked field goal, everything that's happened, the Flus not taking a timeout. Like, And that's not even talking about the previous years when we had Velus Jones muffed kicks. We had Amir Smith-Marset getting the ball ripped out of his hand. There's been so many things that have happened just during the Eberflus era where he's just thrown games away.
No
So
question.
the hope now is if we can get the head coach right, it'll not only help fix some of the issues, but it'll turn these losses into wins and help right this ship. And I think also help showcase the talent we have on this roster.
Well, I mean, it's a beat up roster. We don't know, you know, maybe in the next couple minutes we'll find out who's going to be playing this week. But I'll tell you, I want to go back to one thing just to get your feeling on it. If you notice, Jalen never walked back what he said, never apologized, never said he was out of line, said, hey, you know, I did it and I meant to do it. And I mean, I respect him for that.
He's a guy who's been here his whole career, and I think he's one of the ones who said it. Like he's been here when the roster wasn't very good, and there was reasons why they were losing, but now he knew it. Like you could see this isn't the players' fault. The players did enough to win these games, and the coaches didn't finish it off. So
right. And you had a head coach that would freeze, for lack of a better term, in the most important parts of the game.
Yeah. And there was also, I don't know if you've seen any of this, but Jaquan Brisker has been vocal on Twitter with his
he was like
his disdain.
Man, I'm glad he's gone.
Yeah,
you know,
he posted
those words, but
he posted lyrics that was like, I'm glad he's gone. Like,
yeah,
he also posted some really cryptic tweets saying there are things that he can't tell the story about, but someday you guys will hear. And it sounded like he called Eberflus a snake. Like, there were some things there that I don't know what went on behind the scenes, but the players could be revitalized without Eberflus there. I always thought I was never a huge Eberflus fan, but I always thought he was a little corny to me. Like the way he gives players nicknames, like, and just the way he talks. I was
going to say goofy.
He's goofy, corny. Yeah. And it's like, did players really respect like this even the hits philosophy stuff? Like, okay, it sounds okay on paper, maybe, but
yeah, you know, when you're playing high school football.
Yeah, like it sounded like a high school thing, like something you do for kids. Like when it comes to these are professional athletes and grown-ups. Yeah, and J2K Brisker did say he was back on the grass. It seems like he was. He hasn't been cleared to practice yet, but it seems like he has been working with the trainers. That was Sunday. He tweeted that he was back out on the field practicing. The Bears didn't have an official practice that day. So to me, it was basically him saying he was out there working with trainers on the field. But he did say he was back on the grass, and happened right after Eberflus left. I
think he's got 2 more weeks to go on.
Yeah, he can't play Sunday, and he can't play next week. But he's roughly, that's what, 9 days away now. So I think he is being eased back. He's out there working with trainers, I believe, right now, based off of his words that he said on Twitter.
Right. I mean, and if you look, some of these concussions have gone really long. How about Bates? Bates is the same thing. Now, Bates was listed last week. They just had walkthroughs, so they really weren't doing anything. But he was listed as limited last week.
And now he's
this
out
week. He did not practice so far. We'll see what today is. And to me, you know, that's concerning. And it's not the Bears doctors who make the determination.
Yeah.
On the concussion thing. That's league
the
doctors.
Independent. Yeah.
Yeah. It's league doctors make the determination.
Yeah, it's tough. there are some other questions here. Let me see. This one was about Tev. I think we've kind of discussed this one a few times, but if Tev does remain healthy and finish the season strong, do you think the Bears make him an offer?
My gut feeling is no, unless he'd play for like $5 million or something. But he's going to draw. I'll put it this way. they'll let him see what he can get in free agency. And if and all of a sudden, if offers aren't there, and then you can get him for 5, but I don't think for a second that he's going to sign what would be perceived to be a discounted type contract without seeing what he can get on the open market.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, it's, to me, Tev's one of my favorite players. I just hate that he hasn't been able to stay healthy. I hope we do have a ton of flexibility. So to me, I can't rule it out. We have a ton of flexibility, and depending on, I think the best case scenario though would probably be a 1-year deal. I don't see us investing in him with a long-term deal, and he will probably get that if he goes to free agency. So that would come
probably
down to
and I just can't. It's the reliability, dependability, and he hasn't had it.
And it would really come down to, does he really want to be here? If he really wants to be here, we'd probably offer him something. But if he wants to get paid, and most people want that security and long-term deal, he's probably not going to.
Yeah, no question about that. But part of the way I look at it though is you give the guy any kind of money. I don't care if it's $5 million or $13 million. He's taking up a roster spot. And now if he gets hurt again, and he has yet to play a full season in his 4 years here. So in fact, he's missed over a full season in total games missed since he's been here. Now you're going to, if he gets hurt again and he can't play, now you got a reserve playing at his position versus going out, and obviously you could go out and get somebody and he could get hurt too. But you know, your chances are a little better if you go out, like the guy I would like to see the Bears go after is Trey Smith, the Kansas City guard. Okay.
If he gets out there, if he gets away.
That sumbitch hasn't missed a game since he's been in the league. He came in the same draft as Tev. He hasn't missed a game in 4 years. I don't even know
our luck, though. If we did sign him, we'd probably end up. No, I'm not even going to say it. We're not even going to put that out there.
I know that, but
man.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't know what Kansas City's cap situation is. Are they going to want to pay a guard? Because I think he's going to get that
big
17,
money.
18, 19, $20 million a year deal.
He could get over 20 million.
He was a 6th-round pick, but he's not only has he been good, he's been durable,
and they've won. They're a winning football team, and he's young. He's going to be 25.
Yeah,
so that's another thing.
4th year in the league. He's just a pup. So
he's one of the rare guys where if he hits free agency, he's one of the guys you go after, and I'm willing to overpay, because most of the time when guys enter free agency, there's a reason their team is letting him go.
Put it this way, you're going to know a week and a half before free agency if you got a shot at him.
Yeah. But he's a guy, if he is let go, it's not because he's injury prone. It's not because he's struggled. It's because Kansas City's paying Patrick Mahomes $450 million. They also just paid a ton of money to an offensive tackle. They paid a ton of money to Chris Jones, the defensive tackle. They paid, and then they also have the center, Creed Humphrey, that they just paid. Right. And it kind of came down to one of those guys. It seemed like they couldn't pay. You can't pay 2 interior linemen big money when you got $450 million.
But they wasted money on that right tackle because he sucks.
Yeah, true. Yeah, Jawan Taylor. They spent a lot of money on Jawan Taylor too. I mean, there's always a way that the cap is flexible. So until Trey Smith hits free agency, I still believe the Chiefs probably find a way to bring him back. But if he hits free agency, he's by far my number one target.
No question.
Yep.
I haven't even looked at it that closely. No name really jumps out except him.
Yeah,
but there's probably some others. Is there anybody else that you like?
Not anyone that I'd want to overspend for. Guys who could maybe patch the hole. But if you're talking a guy who could be a long-term starter, he's the one. If he hits free agency, he's the one. I mean, There's a couple centers, but they're older. Someone just mentioned Ryan Kelly. I saw a couple others out there.
Kelly's been hurt a lot.
Yeah,
that guy's missed a lot of time.
The big name would be Trey Smith if he hits it. But then there's always other names that come up. There's cap casualties and other things. But if you're looking for a guy that's not just a Band-Aid, that's gonna be a long-term starter.
No, you're hoping he's a core player.
He's the one. Yeah, he's a core. He's a building block on the offensive line if he hits free agency. And that's rare. You don't see it a lot. So if he does hit free agency, I'd be cool with Poles paying him whatever.
How about this? And he's already played with Darnell Wright.
Yeah. Oh,
they were teammates at Tennessee.
True.
Not for a long time, but they were.
Darnell was a freshman. All the money they have tied up already, Q. They have, the Chiefs. I don't know if they can afford to pay him. They're not going to be able to afford to pay him market value. Maybe he'll work out a long-term deal with them and take a little bit less to stay in Kansas City. But no, man, their cap, they're paying a lot of guys right now. A lot of guys. I didn't even mention Kelsey.
And they got guys they're going to have to pay next year too, and he's one of them. And you can't pay everybody. Hey, Buffalo, I use that as an example because I follow that team a lot, but they were 2 weeks before the league year began, $45 million over the cap. And they had to cut a bunch of guys or trade guys. Bates was one of them. Guys that were starters, they basically gutted that offensive line, except for the tackles. The interior's all different. And they have missed a beat.
Yeah, I mean, they rebuilt it in 1 year, but that was the thing. They already had a good offensive line before that. They were an offensive line that got them to a Super Bowl and got exposed by the Tampa Bay Bucs.
They got the two tackles, and
Jake Fisher.
The inside, the center, and the two guards are new people.
Yep, they drafted two of them. They drafted Creed Humphrey in the second or the first or the second round. Second round, I believe.
Humphrey. What the hell's his name?
Wait
a minute, I take that back. They had three back this year. They had the guard that was a rookie a year ago. They had drafted him in the second round, but it's possible to do. You can do it, and you can find ways to work around the cap. You got to be flexible with it. Buffalo took a huge cap hit by getting rid of Stephon Diggs, but next year he's off the books. So, I don't know what their cap situation looks like next year, but with that coming off, the dead money from that coming off the books, they're probably going to have some money.
Yeah, but it's going to be an interesting offseason. I'm excited for this team. I think we have a chance to win this game Sunday. I can't wait to see Thomas Brown coach, and Caleb Williams has just been absolutely on fire the last few weeks. He definitely struggled the first half. The offense struggled as a whole, but Caleb has made just some absolutely insane plays, and the way he plays in the fourth quarter when this game is on the line it's just so exciting.
That's the best part is that
that's what the great
when he has to make a play, he's making plays.
Yep. And then to see, and that's what makes it worse. We've been waiting to see that our whole lives. And now instead of celebrating that and talking about that like we should be, all we've been talking about is how bad the head coaching has been and how they've cost us these games.
Give me 1 second here. My wife just got home. The dog's going to start barking.
No worries. I was about to wrap it up anyway. Guys, if you have any final questions for Greg, go ahead and get them in. Ty, it's good to see you. Plank in the house. Love to see you, Plank. I'm just really excited about Thomas Brown and Caleb Williams. He needs to get it going. He does need to get it going in the first half. That's something that, as an offense, we haven't been able to do all season long. This offense has just struggled in the first quarter all season. We just haven't started out games strong. That's just been that's been a factor all season long. Welcome back, Greg. Welcome back. He was
I just let him out of this room, and then he go greet my wife.
I was telling Greg before the show that your dog had never said hi on here or anything. No. So I was telling him you got to tell the chat your dog's name now.
Bennett.
Bennett. That's Bennett,
unless you're my wife, then she calls him Bennett Charles.
Bennett Charles.
Yes, Bennett Charles.
Why haven't we started out games strong is a common question here, and that's tough to say. I mean, a lot of times it takes guys time to get in the groove. I blame the offensive line a lot of times and the dumb penalties from the offense as a whole. Things that set you back, the concentration penalties. We have holding calls, false starts. I see a lot more of those early in games than I do late, I feel like.
Last week, part of it, I think, is when you got a team like this with a young quarterback and stuff, you need prep time. And you had no prep time last week. You had 2 walkthroughs, and that was it. And you're going to have the same thing in a couple of weeks when you play Seattle, but they would have been through it once. And by that time, you've got 1, 2, 3. You'll have 5 games under your belt with Thomas Brown, running the offense. So it'll be a little bit different. Seattle's going to come here, and it could be 5 degrees out for all we know. I remember we had a Sunday night game against Atlanta, and it was about 3 or 5 degrees or something like that. And Michael Vick was the quarterback for Atlanta. They put up the white flag about midway through the first quarter.
I remember that game. I remember that one. Yeah.
That game was easy sailing. They just stopped playing. It was too cold for them.
Yep. Slick had a great question here how many players are we off from a dominant defense? I feel like Greg touched on it a little bit earlier. We need another interior defensive lineman. Maybe one more edge rusher.
I think the edge is a little better. My gut feeling is it's a little better than than it's shown so far this year. The way they play that rotation, really nobody can get a lot of sacks. And Swift has been hurt, so that's taken away, so he's out more than he normally would be. So
Sweat's been banged up a little bit. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, they got some guys that got speed. There's no question about that. I think the rookie is he needs an off season.
Austin Booker,
get bigger. Yeah, but I love his motor. There's a lot of things he does well. He needs to bulk up, and he can't get that much bigger. He's got a narrow frame. He's narrow in the hips.
Yep. He has power. His long arm. He's got power. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, you see him sometimes, and it's like you see this skinny guy, and he jolts an offensive lineman. You go, wow, where's it come from?
Saw it at the Senior Bowl a lot. He was beating on some of them tackles. So he's a guy who has some upside for sure.
No question about it.
My man King had a great comment here. He said, I want to see how disciplined they come out. They need to cut the penalties down to 1 or 2 a half. I'd even like 2 a game. Give me 2 or 3 total a game.
Part of that is who's calling the game from the official standpoint.
Yeah.
There's some officials that let things go, and there's other guys that are real, nitpickers. You got to get the right crew. But I think the Bears never catch a break with the officials because they're not a playoff team where the other team.
Do you think that changes if Caleb Williams becomes more the face of the NFL over the next couple of years?
No question. Just like it does with Josh Allen, just like it does with Patrick Mahomes.
Oh, and then, great question here by Keo. I don't know if you saw the end of the game, but the Lions here, 4th and inches.
Yeah, I saw
at the end of the game. I thought the call was crazy, to be honest, but they have David Montgomery, and it's almost like a cheat code at that point where with that offensive line and David Montgomery, I feel like, we can get the yards. I might go for it at that point too. And that's something
he's been doing it all year.
Even last year. Yeah.
Yeah. This has been his MO. And I thought today was when he was in the locker room after. Did you see that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what he was talking about. We did what we do.
I told you guys, he said he was talking, he told him before the game, if we're down there in a close situation, we're going to go for it. To me, it was just, they could have kicked the field goal with 19 seconds left on 4th down. To me,
might have been a little more. Might have had 25 or something, but
it might have been a little bit more. But it was
they would have given Green Bay some time to at least tie up the game.
Tough one, yeah. I probably think it will backfire if you do that all the way to the Super Bowl, or you try to. I think at some point again it's going to backfire. It could be the first round of the playoffs. It could be the second round. Could be the NFC Championship game again. But I feel like you're playing with fire a bit too much. And in the NFL, if you can get away with it,
well, the thing is that his team is confident doing it, and that helps.
Yep. That does help. And they're used to doing it. It's not something new for them.
Yeah.
But it's tough for me. If you're going against them and those opportunities, you want them to go for it because you then have a chance to win the game by stopping them and making plays.
Right.
And our defense has shown before we can do it. If you could stop them in those situations, then you can beat them. So it makes them a beatable team, but you have to stop them. And right now, nobody's stopping David Montgomery. And I still wish he was a Bear, but I'm not going to go down a Monty streak, man.
No, that is what it is.
It is. Well, Greg, we're a little over an hour. Do you have any final comments or anything for this one?
No, I just hope that it works out the way we're hoping that it works out.
Yep.
Not easy going to the West Coast. The weather, I looked up the weather the other day. It's supposed to be high 60s and sunny, not windy. Okay. So it's nice weather. Game.
Yeah, it's going to be a nice game. They have a lot of injuries. They're banged up, but they are a team that went to the Super Bowl. We know how talented they are. They're not going to have Christian McCaffrey. They're not going to have their backup running back. I expect this to be a fun game. I'm excited. Greg, as always, man, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, buddy. We'll see you in a couple
weeks. 2 weeks, brother, and bear down, man.
Okay, bud.